Hey everybody, here from Classic Work. I'm going to start a series on tool setup and maintenance, and I thought nowhere better to begin than the bandsaw, so let's get after it. The first thing that you want to do is go ahead and clean it, because you don't want to, you don't want to fool with something that's just nasty, because things will mess up your setup. So take your air gun or a brush and just brush it all off. You can see that this one here has been needing it for a little while. So just open up all your hatches and go to it. I'm just going to start off by saying that no two bandsaws are the same, and there's different models out there, but I'm just flat out tell you that this right here is just a basic on all bandsaws. Some of them are going to be different, some of them won't have as many guides, some of them will have more guides, some of them will be a lot more time needed for adjustments, some of them not as much. You have to take into account that this is kind of a basic over it, and my bandsaw will not be the same as yours. This is a Powermatic model 141, and it was probably made back in the early 60s, if not older than that. So this is before they changed to the gold. This one right here was actually green. So it's going to be different. And some tables won't allow you to do what I'm going to show you, so you're just going to have to make your own educated decisions on what you're going to do. So let's start from the very beginning. Once you have your bandsaw clean and you have it, pretty much how you like it, the first thing that you're going to want to do is don't mess with the table, don't mess with your blade or anything like that. The first thing you want to do, especially on new bandsaws or ones that have been moved or anything like that, is you want to check that both your top wheel and your bottom wheel are what's known as coplanar. So what you're going to have to do is take a straight edge, like a steel straight edge, or you can even use a wooden straight edge that's jointed on one side. I'm going to show you how to make that if you don't know how. It's real simple. But once you have your straight edge, this is what you're going to do. For making a straight edge out of wood, you need to choose a hardwood that's pretty dense, and it needs to be fairly thick, and it needs to be fairly wide. Anywhere between 1 inches thick and 4 inches wide is pretty good. What you want to do is you want to face one side of it, and then take your fresh face and put it up against the edge of your fence to joint the edge square with that face. Once you do that, make sure sight it and be sure that everything seems flat and everything's square to itself. And when you get done, you should have a very good and accurate straight edge. Okay, now for checking for coplanar, take your jointed board, or you could use a really good level, or you could use a machine straight edge. Either of them will be fine. Some people will probably argue with this is not true enough. If it's out 0.5 of an inch, I'm not too worried about it. So that's by your own choice. But this right here is plenty adequate for most woodworkers. So what you want to do is take your straight edge, put it up against the lip on all 4 points of your wheels. Now, the bottom one, unless it needs to move out or in, it cannot tilt. The only one that can tilt is the one that's up top. That's to judge your gauge for your blade. So if this one's out, the only way that you can move it is most of them have set screws that are in the bottom. You'll just loosen them up and then move your wheel wherever you want to position it and then tighten it up. That's pretty simple. It's pretty standard. Now for the top, sometimes you'll get gap, and in this case this one is. If you'll look up here, I've got about an 1/8 or so inch gap, and it's flush right there, and down here it's flush, and up there there's a little bit of gap, just a tiny bit. So what I'm hoping is, or what you should do, excuse me, is take your tilt knob, which is usually on the outside of the machine on this side, and you're going to tilt your wheel in the direction you want it to go, and see it just lined up just like that. Now let's check our points again. That one's good. Okay, this one on the bottom's good, and the one on top, we're in good shape. Alright, so that's how you adjust for coplanar on your wheels. Next, we're moving on. Go ahead and put the blade on. One thing you want to do before you put any blade on is make sure that your adjustment gauge is as loose as it can be. And another thing that I like to do whenever I put one on is check your bearings in your wheels themselves. Now this one down here is stationary, and it shouldn't give it at all. There might be, you know, a little tiny bit of slack in it, but it's nothing that's too concernable. This one up here though, since it rides on a guided system, it's going to have a lot of slack in it. But the only way that you can really judge that is actually look into your bearing and look at your shaft and see if there's any movement. And if there's a little movement, it's okay, but it needs to be pretty solid, because the RPMs that it's running, it can throw blades, and this one has. And I'm sure anybody who's ever had a bandsaw for any kind of time knows what it's like. So to put the blade on, be sure that you do it the right way. Don't put your blade on backwards, which is really easy to do. So all you do is you take your blade, you slip it through your guide. It's on your table. And I always start on the bottom wheel first, kind of work my way up. It would help if you had gloves too, because the blade is very sharp. But if you're careful, it should be fine. And a lot of times, some blades on different machines will go on very easily. Some, like this one, you kind of have to put them on like a chain on a bicycle. Get you an edge started and then turn it. And it should slip right on. Give it a few turns to see where it's going to track. And right now it's not tracking anywhere. So it's not tracking where we want it. To make the blade track in a better position, rather than tilting your head just yet, my wheels are not exactly lined up with each other laterally. So what you can do is all of them have, or most of them I should say, have a set screw that's on the inside of the wheel. Go in there and loosen that up. Take you a socket, put it over your wheel, take you some form of hammer, and then hit the socket. And move it, you know, 1/8 of an inch or something like that, and come back and check it. Put the wheel just a little bit inward. There we go. Check our bottom. Okay, what you hear is, I don't know if you can hear it or not, but you hear this? A little at the bottom. That's actually my bottom bearing, and it needs to be turned a little bit. But that looks pretty good the way it's tracking. You need to take your straight edge again and check for coplanar and see how much you're out. And my top half of my blade It looks pretty good though, and I'm gonna leave it at that. That seems pretty solid to me. So it ain't got to be 100% true, but it needs to be close to it's what you can get. So don't forget to re-tighten up your set screw, because you don't want that thing wobbling on you. So go ahead and tighten it up. Okay, now we'll move on to the blade settings. Okay, as for the bearing guides that are on your support post here, what you want to do is take your business card, and they need to be set at a certain distance from the blade, so that when your blade's turning, they shouldn't spin when there's no pressure added. When you go to cut a board, it's going to drift the blade one side or to the other, and the bearings give it support so it can make a straight cut. So take your business card, and you don't have to be 100% right on, but if they need a little bit of persuasion, take your hammer, hit back and forth. That looks pretty good. Now this one here. Okay. And the business card, most of them are about the same thickness, and this one here is a little on the thin side, so if the distance on it's just a little bit off, it's not going to hurt anything. So take your wrench and tighten it up. Alright, same thing for your back bearing. Now some saws will not have these two bearings, they might have just guide blocks, and the same process is for those as well. Take your card and go on the back side of that. That looks good, and the same thing for the bottom one on the bottom. And you might have to kind of judge it by eye because it's in kind of a bad place. But it's really, it's nothing to be, really concerned about. It just needs to be close.
One thing I forgot to mention is your blade needs to be about 1/8 of an inch in front of the bearings, so the teeth don't ride on the side of the bearings. If it does, it'll chew up your bearings, and that's not cool. So just want to correct that.
Last thing you're going to want to do is adjust your tension, and most bandsaws have a gauge on there that tells you what size blade and where to tension it to, but I seem to find that that's a little ineffective. What you can do is real simple, is take a guard and set it up as high as you can, go to the middle of the blade that's between your table and your guide, and press, and if you get about a quarter, with moderate pressure, about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch, you're in good shape. That's plenty of tension. Last thing you want to do is take your square and butt it up right next to the edge of the blade and check for squareness. After that, if it's out of square, you'll have to move your table. You have adjustments, usually some form of trunnion to adjust, and it'll tell you exactly where you want to go. And that's it for setting up a bandsaw.